Hello everyone, this is Mirza from Newmetric. Mr. Shailendra Singh is our cybersecurity expert. He has over 10 years of cybersecurity experience and has held the role of Chief Information Security Officer in his past experiences. He currently holds CISSP, CISM, CISA, and ISO 27001 lead auditor certifications. Today, he will be talking about how to conduct vulnerability assessment and penetration testing, which is commonly known as VAPT. This workshop is part of our services on cybersecurity, and this one is a continuation of a workshop titled How to Check If Your Web App Has Loopholes Which Hackers Can Exploit. Shailendra, over to you now.
All right. Thanks, Mirza. This session is about how to conduct VAPT. The expansion of it is vulnerability assessment and penetration testing. There is a common misconception that VAPT is one thing. Actually, it is made up of two different parts which are related to each other, but not exactly the same. We will anyways be looking at it in the next slide. So let's get on to, first of all, understanding that what exactly are we going to be learning in this session. First is that we learn the difference between VA and PT. VA stands for vulnerability assessment, PT stands for pen testing or penetration testing. We will also look at what exactly are the prerequisites. So even before you get VAPT project off the ground, there are a lot of things that need to be taken care of in advance. Some of them have got legal implications, some of them have got technical needs that need to be satisfied. We will look into those in detail. We will look at a roadmap in a typical VAPT project, because it is quite an extensive project, typically lasting about 2 to 3 months every time it is taken up. If we do not prepare a proper roadmap, it is highly likely that there will be time or effort or cost overruns. We need to avoid them. The best way to avoid them is to prepare a roadmap and stick to it. We will be looking at the various phases in the roadmap. There are multiple of them. It is important to understand that VAPT is not something that is done unilaterally by the security team. There are multifunctional involvements involved in the successful completion of a VAPT project. Most typically, like if we talk of a web application VAPT, in which case the interaction will predominantly be between the security team and the development team. But then, depending on what exactly is the IT asset that is being subjected to the VAPT exercise, different functions may be involved. We'll be looking at one important aspect that is usually overlooked and probably not given the necessary attention, which is that VAPT is not a one-time exercise. We will look at how and why VAPT should be a regular exercise. And then finally, we will be looking at how do you track vulnerabilities till they close, because just finding vulnerabilities or weaknesses in your system is not enough. You need to ensure that they are tracked till closure. Otherwise, you're effectively keeping your IT asset open to being attacked. Having said that, let's look at what are the differences between vulnerability assessment and penetration testing. Now, those from the security domain will probably have better clarity on the differences of it, but then this is what has been my common observation, that everyone else who's not related to security tends to believe that VAPT is the same activity, the same intent. It is not really the case, and to some extent security professionals over a period of time have been responsible for this notion gaining ground and becoming firm in the non-security people. And probably the reason was that it is much more difficult to explain in layman terms as to what exactly is the difference between VAPT. That's could be the one reason. Another probable reason is that more frequently VAPTs are usually done together. They are not done separately, although because of the fact that they are related to each other, but then they're not the same activity, it is entirely possible that you could undertake only a VA project, or you could only undertake a VA pen testing project. More frequently, it is going to be VAPT. Another observation that I have commonly made, where the engineering team or the client, whoever you are conducting the VAPT for, they may be undertaking a VA project, but then call it VAPT, which is a serious mistake in my opinion, because there are certain aspects that are completely missed out altogether if pen testing is not going to be part of the project. And this is something that, as security professionals, it is our responsibility to ensure that whoever are our stakeholders, they are clearly explained if, let's say, pen testing is not going to be part of your project. This is something that I would rather say is the obligation of security professionals and the security function as a whole, to make it clear that if VA is all that you're doing, then please ensure that you clarify that we are not doing pen testing. You could have many reasons why pen testing may not be possible, may not be practical, may not be feasible, or may not be necessary. Depends on your specific context. But having said that, these are the usual differences that I have seen in terms of between VA and PT. VA usually is active because passive vulnerability assessment is not very valuable. You end up discovering things that are very elementary in nature. And when I say things, I'm referring to the weaknesses in the whatever IT asset that you are conducting the VA for. Now, for the sake of ease of communication here, I will by default be talking about VA and PT in the context of a web application. But then please understand that the methodologies slightly differ depending on the specific IT asset that we are having in scope, and the various kind of IT assets that could be in scope for your VPT activity could be your VPC environment, your office network, your mobile applications, which could be an Android app or a mobile app. It could be your IoT devices. There are so many different methodologies that apply to the specific scope that you are considering for your VAPT activity. And to make it simple and quicker for this workshop to progress, I'm going to be talking entirely in the context of a web application, because cloud-based SaaS applications are the in thing, and with the progress and the march of how many cloud-based SaaS applications are being released every single day, it makes logical sense that we focus on the IT class that is by far the most massive, because they are the ones that need the most amount of security in terms of volume. Having said that, active or passive, it is entirely the choice of the security team whether they want to conduct an active VA or a passive VA. When it comes to pen testing, it is always active. What is the difference between active and passive is that typically passives will not be identified by, let's say, an intrusion detection system that you may have, or your web application may not trigger any of the rules, because of the fact that what you're trying to do is something that is not really actively engaging your target, and the target being the web application. In case of active, you try to do things that are more intensive, and because of which it is called active. You're actively engaging with your target. The difference between VA and PT is that PT is almost like it is always active, meaning you cannot conduct PT unless and until you are conducting an active scan. The second difference is that VA only discovers weaknesses. In pen testing, you try to exploit the weaknesses that you have discovered. So one of the things about pen testing is that it is possible but difficult to do it unless and until first you have conducted a vulnerability assessment. And once you have conducted the vulnerability assessment, identified the vulnerabilities, you will then attempt to exploit them. You are basically going to the next level, to the next step, when you compare pen testing to vulnerability assessment. The next difference is that VA takes lesser time, lesser effort, and lesser cost, whereas pen testing is usually more time, effort, and cost intensive. Clearly, as I said, you'll conduct VA first, discover the vulnerabilities, and then you will attempt to penetrate the system. Obviously, it is going to take longer and cost you more in terms of effort and time. And then finally, since the VA activity is less intensive and it will only discover weaknesses and it is not going to the next level, the results of the final outcome in terms of your improvement of security is relatively lower when it comes to VA as compared to pen testing, which means that if you have the time or the budget for in terms of time, effort, or cost, then in that case, VA and PT both are strongly recommended. Simultaneously, the opposite holds true as well, which is if you're doing pen testing, your improvement in security is going to be higher than only VA. The prerequisites for VAPT does not matter whether you are an internal security team or an external security team. In both cases, um, you are bound by, you're going to be bound by some kind of an agreement that you are not going to disclose the outcomes, the results that you are going to see when you complete the VAPT exercise. And clearly, see, you will end up discovering a lot of things that are weaknesses in the system, and if these land up in the wrong hands, they could exploit it for their benefit. You do not want that to happen. And NDAs typically are implied or maybe even done earlier when you are an in-house security team. But if you're an outsourced security team, maybe you're a security service provider like Numetric, for example, then in that case, signing an NDA is a must. This NDA should be favoring the stakeholders. If let's say you are internal, then in that case the engineering team. If you're outsourced entity like Numetric, then in that case you should be favoring your client. So, and the NDA says clearly that whatever it is that you are disclosing, you will ensure that it is protected sufficiently so that it does not fall into the wrong hands. The second prerequisite is that you have to have a separate dedicated scanning environment for the VAPT exercise, and it must be identical or as similar to the production environment as possible. Now, this is one thing that I have seen usually is missed out whenever VAPT activities are taken up, and there are some financial reasons, some practical reasons why it may not be possible to do it. But then I strongly recommend that if you cannot recreate your production environment for the VAPT to be conducted, it is best that you postpone the VAPT activity till the time this is done. And the reason for that is, at the end of it, you are trying to protect your production environment, the environment that is most likely to be targeted by hackers. If you're not creating a scanning environment that is identical to the production environment, you're not going to be discovering all of the vulnerabilities and weaknesses and the various methods of exploiting those weaknesses. Effectively speaking, you will achieve a partial level of security, and worse than that, you will end up having this false sense of security that your production environment is safe because you conducted VAPT for an environment that was that also belongs to you. Although your production environment probably continues to have weaknesses that are either undiscovered or otherwise they have been probably discovered but not yet remediated. In either case, please avoid this. There is another reason why you should have a dedicated scanning environment. Typically, this also tends to happen that there is already an existing staging or a UAT environment that is used by, let's say, the QA function or the developer team for development purposes. And this same environment is then subjected to the VAPT activity. This, in my opinion, is also problematic for two reasons mainly. One is that it is impossible for the UAT or staging environment to be identical to the production environment. It is There will be configuration differences, there will be infrastructure differences, there will be network architecture differences, there will be weaker levels of business logic securities that are built into the application, meaning the security that is built into the application, like for example throttling or rate limiting, those all aspects, or password policy, these all aspects may not even be enabled in the testing environment, whereas when you're conducting a VAPT, you may want these aspects to be enabled because you want to test the application as it is used in the production environment. The second reason is that VAPT is a fairly intensive activity. A lot of bandwidth is consumed, a lot of requests are sent in to the server environment when you are conducting VAPT. This may interfere with the normal activities that you have this UAT or staging environment for. They could be development or QA, and you do not want that kind of an impact to be there. So when you get a dedicated scanning environment, there is nothing going on in this environment except for the scanning. And this also allows you to more easily replicate it to the production environment. Effectively, all the problems that I mentioned earlier of sharing the VAPT environment with your Forge, which is meant for your UAT or test staging purposes, for and being used for the scanning environment, these differences that I mentioned earlier, they automatically can be eliminated, because you can then make the scanning environment identical to your production environment. The next requirement is that you need to have a detailed architecture and inventory of the infrastructure that is used in your environment, because this becomes more relevant specifically when you are conducting a pen testing activity. The method of exploitation of the discovered weaknesses is very subjective in nature, and it is completely to the intelligence, dependent on the intelligence and ingenuity of whoever is conducting the PT exercise. Now, they will change the way they attempt to attack your system using the discovered vulnerabilities, depending on how exactly the architecture is set up and what exactly are the components in your infrastructure. Now, if you do not have the architecture or the inventory with you, then it is preferable that you prepare this in detail and share it with the scanning team. When it comes to web applications, you may not have an architecture. Architecture may not be necessary, but in that case, your tech stack is something that ideally you should have it fully prepared before you get the VAPT activity started. And then one other thing that I commonly insist personally is that when you are initiating a VAPT activity and you have taken care of all of the previous steps, NDA is signed, scanning environment is created, it is identical to the production environment, it is dedicated for the VAPT, entire architecture or tech stack and inventory is available, explanation is provided to your VAPT team. One other important step is that you should ideally disable all of the security systems that you have, which you are currently using in your production environment, but in the scanning environment, you should disable them. And this may be sounding counterintuitive, that why exactly would you want to disable security technologies, because they are effectively protecting your application, and that is exactly what you are trying to do with this VAPT exercise. That is true, and they are required in your production environment. They should continue to function the way they are supposed to function. But the main purpose of a VAPT activity is not to test these systems. It is to test the security of your own application. It is to find out all of the weaknesses in your application. Now, it happens all the time that there is a web application firewall in front of the application, and someone is attempting, let's say, an SQL injection attack. It is not the application itself that is resisting that attack, but the web application that is intervening. Now, the problem with this is that you will end up, rest assured, that the web application firewall is doing its job, or maybe your application is not vulnerable to SQL injection attack, which is not true. The vulnerability exists. It is the web application firewall that took care of it, not the fact that your application itself is resistant to it. Now, two issues here. One, your weakness in the web application continues to remain. And two, tomorrow, if by mistake or maybe the attacker finds a way around the web application firewall, now they can reach your application and the weakness remains, so they can go ahead and exploit it. So the best approach is you disable all the security systems temporarily till the time the scanning is completed, let all of the weaknesses be identified, and then maybe redo the VAPT exercise with the security systems enabled. This will end up doing two things. One is that you will ensure that all of the weaknesses have been identified, and it will also give you assurance that your protective systems are actually functional. It may also happen that you may have a web application firewall, but you have not yet properly configured it. If, let's say, this happens that there is a SQL injection vulnerability in your application and your web application firewall is not protecting it, you fix the SQL injection vulnerability, and yet your SQL injection attacks reach your application, then in that case, your WAF is not currently correctly configured, right? So ideally, with the security systems and without the security systems is how you should be conducting your VAPT project roadmap. Now, what you see here is a typical roadmap that we in Numetric use for VA exercises. Now, I'd like to call out that you could use a two-phase approach or a three-phase approach. The difference between the two is that in the three-phase approach, there is an interim scan that is conducted, because it happens quite frequently that in the discovery phase, a lot of vulnerabilities are found. The development team then attempts to remediate them. comes back with a report saying that okay, we have remediated all of them. And then when the rescan is conducted, the remediation scan, this is the final scan where ideally all of the vulnerabilities should have been remediated. What actually is found out is that not all of them have been fixed. So we need to go back to the development team saying that okay, these vulnerabilities have not been fixed. Now this becomes a problem when you outsource your VAPT project. The reason being, when outsourcing is done, the time and cost estimation is dependent on the effort that is going to be put in and for the duration of the project. Effectively speaking, before even the kickoff happens, it is already known in advance that when exactly the project is going to end, how many hours someone is going to be spending, what are they going to be doing, and there is not much of opportunity available for redoing a scan. And this frequently becomes a reason that if you have not remediated all of the vulnerabilities, then you either have to extend the project at additional cost, or you may not even get your green report, which is something that may be necessary, for example, for your sales team or for your own internal assurance. The solution to this is the security team. They will end up going about conducting, instead of 2 scans, 3 scans. One will be the discovery scan where all of the vulnerabilities are discovered. The second will be your interim scan, where they will recheck that have the vulnerabilities been actually discovered or not, and if any of them have not been remediated, then in that case they will go ahead and give a feedback so that you get another opportunity to remediate them. And then finally, when you confirm that okay, they have been remediated eventually, they will go ahead and conduct the remediation scan, which is the final one, and where they will go ahead and uh, give you the green report. Now, having said that, key highlights that like I would like to point out in the roadmap, one is that you can have 2 phases or 3 phases. 2 phases is just discovery and final. If you're confident that you're going to be remediating all of the vulnerabilities that have been discovered, then in that case you need not have that interim scan phase, but 3 phase is recommended if you're not that confident. Next is prerequisites must be fulfilled before the roadmap kicks off. As I said earlier, the remediation gap is undetermined, and there are 2 remediation gaps you see here. Now, the reason why you cannot um, decide it in advance is because you do not know how long the development team is going to be taking to fix these vulnerabilities. It is entirely dependent on the security focus and the other priorities of the engineering team, which is why you can only give a notional estimate that maybe the engineering team is going to take y number of days to do it. You do not know that in advance. Next is discovery scan phase is naturally the longest. It involves automated scanning, manual intervention, penetration testing. There are a whole lot of things that are going on. So you can see that the typical ratio of relationship between the interim and the final scan versus the discovery scan is 1:2, which is if your discovery scan is X number of days, typically you will end up taking only half the time for your remediation scan. And finally, one important thing for the security team, once you have completed the scan, you will be creating a report. And this is one common mistake that I have seen in several VAPT reports that I have looked at, which is that the detailed vulnerability reports are not encrypted. Now, I find it very problematic that there is one single report which has got all of the weaknesses of a web application, some of them critical in nature. If they land up in the wrong hands, it will become a very serious problem for the entire organization, and they're not encrypted. I find it very, very problematic, and this is a practice that I've usually seen of security teams not taking care of this basic aspect. So I strongly recommend that once you have completed your VPT activity and you are preparing your report, yes, you will have your editable source file with you, which is not shared with anyone. And this is something that you are maintaining within your security team, and your security network is sufficiently protected. But the moment you convert it into, let's say, a PDF document that you're going to be sharing with the engineering team, please ensure that you send it in an encrypted form, which is password protected with a reasonably long password. Please always do that. And I find it very troublesome that security teams do not take care of this basic problem. I would say it is a serious problem in my opinion. But then there is also the thing that a version of the VAPT report is used by several other teams. who are also your stakeholders. Now, who are these stakeholders? Your external auditors, your client side auditors, your sales team, which is constantly seeking out new clients and prospects, and they are interested in conducting security due diligence. All of these sets of people, they are interested in obtaining that assurance that the organization is conducting VAPT, and the only way you can prove that is by showing them the VAPT report itself. So what you should end up doing is that you obtain your raw VAPT report, which has got everything in it. You encrypt it and share it with the engineering team. Simultaneously, you remove all of the details from the VAPT report, redact all of the information that you could consider as PII, keep the summary information, and maybe the generic information in the VAPT report, like what is the scope that you use? Did you use OWASP Prot 10? What was the checklist that you used? Which of the vulnerabilities passed? What was the outcome of the pen testing result? And outcome as in aggregated outcome, not the details of it. And that redacted report, you create it, and maybe that is the one that you can keep in an unencrypted form, because it will be difficult for people who are these stakeholders to be constantly using a password that you have put on the PDF file. But please ensure that you create two versions of the reports, one detailed and encrypted, another one redacted and which is meant for distribution. At the various phases of the VAPT, I will be skipping the interim scan phase because it is identical to the remediation scan. The only difference is that in the interim scan, the possible outcome is that not all of the vulnerabilities have been remediated, and you are giving a feedback to the engineering team that these are the ones that we find have been fixed. These are the ones that have not been fixed. Please go ahead and fix them. Other than that, there is no practical difference between the two. So the two phases are discovery and remediation. By far, discovery it has got to be the longest phase. It involves a lot of activities. Predominantly, the longest time that is spent is in the automated scan and the pen testing itself. You may be conducting automated or manual scans in the discovery scan phase. Discovery scan is by its nature very labor and time intensive, and one of the things that you will frequently encounter in the discovery scan phase is frequent stoppages, and these stoppages happen for all sorts of reasons. When you are, let's say, conducting an automated scan, the server may not have the necessary capacity; it will crash. Um, the server may have some kind of the application rather may have some kind of inbuilt security features that may prevent your discovery scan from continuing non-stop. And if you are from the security function, you will probably know that how fast these automated scans run. They send out sometimes hundreds of requests to the server per second, right? And over that, they run for days. Sometimes I've seen scans running for almost 7 days, right? So the server may have its own security mechanisms, and these will prevent the application from continuing. Maybe there is a password policy set that if more than 5 passwords are tried within such a span of time, go ahead and block that user. Now, the moment the user gets blocked, your discovery scan will has been converted from a privileged scan to a non-privileged scan, and non-privileged scans are really do not help much. You need to be logged into the application to really see all of the dynamic pages. The fact is that all of the automated scans that are conducted for web application typically are conducted in a gray box environment where you have the username and password, and you are attempting to go through each of the pages of the application and figure out that whether vulnerabilities exist in these authenticated pages. Now, if the password policy ends up invalidating the user, then your discovery scan will effectively fail, or it will continue, but it is completely useless. In comparison, the differences in the remediation scan are in contrast to whatever I spoke about the discovery scan, which is one is that they're usually quicker because your scope is limited to only the vulnerabilities and weaknesses that were found in the discovery scan phase. Sorry, as a rule, you're not permitted to go out of scope. See, there are multiple reasons here. One is that if you keep on going out of scope, and let's say there is constant development keeping on happening in parallel, new vulnerabilities may be introduced into the system which did not exist in the application at the time of the discovery scan, but now they have been added to by the time you are conducting the remediation scan. if you do not scope limit yourself to the outcomes of the discovery scan, you'll end up discovering a new vulnerability, which results in the green report never being obtained. That is one issue. The other issue is that since the green report is not obtained, you will not be able to say that the project has closed, and that is not how ideally VAPT should be conducted. If you intend to do it in that manner where it is a rolling activity, then a VAPT scan or a project is not the way to go about it. Then in that case, you should integrate your security testing as part of the CI/CD, and typically speaking, just the way QA testing is done, in parallel security testing should be done. And unless and until you get a go ahead from both the QA function as well as a security function, ideally the application should not be pushed to production. But then when you talk of VAPT, this is not what you're really doing. When we talk of VAPT project, typically you are conducting vulnerability assessment and pen testing for an application that is already live. It may not have yet been pushed to production, but it is still complete, right? So effectively, it's not a process. QA is not a project, it is a process. Similarly, security testing, when it is integrated into your CI/CD or your software development lifecycle, it is not a project anymore, it is a process. Here we are talking of a VAPT project, which means that there is an end to the project, and the end in this case means that you say that all of the vulnerabilities have been discovered, remediated. That is why scope limiting is something that is important. The next difference is that while discovery scans are automated and manual, remediation scan typically is manual because you have got very few vulnerabilities to just recheck. You do not need to be running any automated scans. And since automated scans are not being run in the remediation scan phase, usually you will not encounter stoppages the kind that I explained earlier. VAPT scheduling. Now here, I this is kind of stepping just outside the VA project activity and rather talking about how should you look at vulnerability management as a whole for the organization or maybe for the application itself. And this is something that is frequently a factor of disappointment. Like, I find it disappointing that organizations look at VAPT as a one-time activity that is done. You get the report and you're done forever. That is definitely not the approach that should be taken for VAPT. You should define that how frequently are you going to be doing it. Is there a necessity to do it regularly? And if so, then what are the various factors that decide that how frequently you should be taking up VAPT projects for your application or for your IT assets, whatever the case may be. So the factors here are: one, how frequent is your sprint cycle? Do you release new code every 15 days or 1 month or 3 months or 6 months or once a year? Do you do that? Tie your VAPT activity to your sprint cycle. If you are releasing new code every month, you are making code changes that are automatically resulting in new vulnerabilities probably being introduced into the system. You need to know those. Second is that what are the security needs of your organization, in the sense that your organization may be a fintech. It may be handling credit card numbers. Clearly, your need for security is way higher in comparison to any other cloud-based SaaS provider who has built an application that does not even have PII in it. Maybe it is some kind of an analytics tool which uses data that is obtained from the internet. There is lesser need for security for that organization. Depending on your need, you should tie back the frequency of your VAPT. And then, depending on the expectations, requirements, and needs of your stakeholders could be your clients. Your clients may say that you're currently conducting VAPT once a year, but then that is not enough. We want you to do it every quarter because your sprint cycle is monthly. In 3 months' time, you're introducing a lot of new code to the application. We are not happy that you conduct your VAPT exercises once a year. There could be regulations. For example, PCI DSS is something that is applicable to you as a standard that you have to comply with. There, the requirement is once every 90 days. You have to conduct VAPT for your infrastructure. It's a mandate. If you do not do that, you will not be allowed to hold your certification. Maybe you have obtained ISO 27001 certification. Now, it does say that you are free to decide that when exactly you should be conducting your VAPT activity, as in how frequently you should be conducting it, to what extent you should be doing it. But it cannot exceed a period of more than 1 year, because every year the audit is conducted. So depending on your clients or your regulatory environment, or the compliances that you wish to or want to maintain, your VAPT schedule should be decided based on that as well. The related aspect, that let's say that you are conducting VAPT regularly, ideally you should be defining a vulnerability management program. But let's say that you have not gone ahead to that extent. This specifically applies to your security team. Let's say you are the owner of managing vulnerabilities in your organization, and you are in-house, meaning you're full-time employees of the organization. Then you should have a very good mechanism of how exactly you will be tracking the various vulnerabilities that are discovered in your various IT assets, and tracking till closure. And if you do not do that, the whole point of getting a report is entirely useless, because new vulnerabilities will get introduced into the system over time. This could be because of application changes, new modules being added to the system, configuration changes. There are various things that keep on constantly changing, and as things change, vulnerabilities tend to come back. And when it comes to tracking, there are two main important aspects here. One is how exactly do you do the tracking, and the second is uh, what exactly are the metrics that you should be evaluating yourself against for the sake of performance monitoring. When it comes to tracking options, you could have a simple spreadsheet, a shared one if possible, where what you call as action register for vulnerability. Now, this is a borrowed idea from ISO 27001, where there is a requirement that you should have an action register for compliance. You can repurpose something that is meant for AR compliance into what you can call as your action register for vulnerability, where you're tracking all of the vulnerabilities till the time that they're closed. You could use project tracking tools. Usually your development team itself will be already using some kind of a project ticketing system. You can just go ahead and create a project that is meant for security and start tracking your vulnerabilities there. You could use your bug tracking system. The benefit of bug tracking system is that not only are inputs possible to the bug tracking system internally, but then you can probably allow someone outside the organization to be adding bugs to your system. And bugs are nothing but problems in your application. Some of the bugs could actually be weaknesses or vulnerabilities. And then finally, if not internally done, you can have your vulnerability tracking done through a bug bounty program. So you obtain a subscription to some kind of a bug bounty provider. There are many of them, where people in the outside world from the security researcher team, they can go ahead and submit bugs to for your application, and you go ahead and track them there. You can also use the bug bounty program for tracking vulnerabilities uh, from within, as in the security team that you belong to. You can go ahead and submit bugs clearly, because you are a stakeholder. You will not be your different rules will apply as far as bug bounties are concerned. But then the benefit of the bug bounty program is that by design it allows you to track uh, the vulnerabilities that are applicable to your application. And then let's move on to the performance monitoring aspect. Here, these are the some of the performance metrics that you can track for your vulnerability management program. And as long as you track these four, at least they are adequate in my opinion. One is that vulnerability aging, that once you discover a vulnerability, from that point on, how long has it taken for the vulnerability to be remediated? This will indicate that how responsive your development, your engineering, or your DevOps team is to the security function needs. Your need is that as soon as the vulnerability is discovered and reported to the people who are going to be remediating it, they make a note of it, they acknowledge to you that, okay, they have made a note of it, they take the necessary action, and they take it within a prescribed amount of time. And this is something that if you define a vulnerability management program, you will have done it already, which is, let's say that the vulnerability is critical, you'll mandate that it will be remediated within 7 days or 15 days max. Now, when you start tracking aging of your vulnerabilities, you will map it to the severity of the vulnerability, and you'll make a connection that what do we want to achieve versus what are we really achieving. uh, the benefit of vulnerability aging will be it gives you this metric which is objective and defendable, that you can present to the senior management, indicating how inclined or disinclined your engineering team is in remediating the vulnerabilities, how serious they are. It could also mean that they are serious, but they're not able to take it up, maybe because they are overloaded, effectively meaning to say that a decision needs to be taken, that the size of the engineering team needs to increase. The second performance factor that you can monitor is what are the closure rates. Now, what I mean by this is, let's say you discover 20 vulnerabilities, and out of them 5 are serious, 10 of them are not so serious, somewhere in in between, and then 5 of them are relatively low issue or low problematic vulnerabilities. Typically you will classify them into high, medium, low. In case of Numetric, we have a 5 point grading system, which is critical, then high, medium, low, and informational. Now, one of the ways of judging as to how much uh, is the inclination of the engineering team in remediating those vulnerabilities is, what are they interested in closing? Are they only focusing on the critical and high ones? Are they ignoring the medium and low and informational ones? um, if they are doing that, then you could actually indicate that what exactly is the ratio of closure of these various severity vulnerabilities. If your engineering team is really serious about security, they may take longer to close or remediate the medium and the low ones, but they should not ignore them indefinitely. And the reason for that is, today you may discover a vulnerability that you may rate it as medium or low in terms of its severity and impact. But then it happens frequently that these all, if they have been kept open for a long period of time, they combine with each other, and together they become a serious vulnerability. And just as there is a concept of tech debt in the field of engineering, similarly there is a concept of security debt, uh, which is that there is something that needs to be done for your security function, but they have not been done yet, and it is effectively adding up to the future workload. This particular parameter will help you identify as to how much security debt exists on the organization. So this could be another performance monitoring factor that you can take up. The third one is, how frequently are you conducting your VPT scans? Is it in line with your sprint cycle? Is it in line with the compliance requirements? Is your sprint cycle monthly, but then you're conducting your VAPT activity once a year? This is something that you should consider. The more frequently you conduct VAPT, the more load you impose on the engineering team. Now you're giving them work that does not involve building new modules or does not involve fixing bugs that have been highlighted by clients, but rather you're asking for their time and effort to be put somewhere else. uh, Too frequent is a problem. Too infrequent means your application tends to be vulnerable for a longer period of time, and your organization may be subject to a security breach. You need to find the balance between the two, and based on that, define a frequency that is ideal for your specific case, and then measure, are you actually adhering to that frequency, right? So it is a comparison between what is your ideal frequency versus what is your actual frequency of conducting VAPT scans. And then the final performance factor is, you should ensure that all these performance metrics, they are highlighted, brought up in the management reviews, and sufficient amount of discussion and decision making happens on them, because you can take up all the activities that you want to in terms of technical security, which is VAPT scans and remediation. If these do not matter to your senior management, there's no point in taking these up, because without senior management involvement, your security function is not going to be doing any good to the organization in any case. Before we get to the questions, let's look at what exactly are the aspects that we covered today. One is that we understood that what are the differences between vulnerability assessment and penetration testing. Together they are called VAPT. What are the prerequisites for your VAPT? Your NDA, your scanning environment, all of these, your architecture, details about your tech stack. All of these aspects should be decided and covered before you even begin the VAPT activity. You should then define a roadmap that ensures that you stick to it and your project completes as intended and as planned. You should understand that VAPT project is made up of multiple phases. The most common names that you will end up giving them are initial scan or final scan, or what we call in Numetric as discovery scan, remediation scan. You should define a schedule for your application, for your organization, as to when and how frequently will you be taking up VAPT. You will use various factors to decide what exactly your schedule is going to be. And then finally, you should ensure that you are not only having a schedule, but you are actively tracking all of the various objective metrics that come up, and preferably presenting these to the senior management to ensure that your vulnerability management program is working as expected, right? So having said that, we have about 13 minutes. I want to take up now the questions. All right. The first question that I see is that what would be the common problem for someone not conducting VAPT? Okay. Uh, I'm sorry. But the fact is that if you're not conducting a VAPT, it's not a common problem. It's a definite problem that sooner or later you will be facing a security breach. And now, maybe you belong to a security function and to an organization that is not so big or not a well-known name yet. Does it really matter? You will become a metric in the list of organizations that have faced a security breach. Second, you keep on reading every day that new organization has been breached. Recently, McDonald's was the one that was subject to a security breach. But you do not want to be part of that group of people who are permanently an example that a breach has happened. Second, if you are, let's say, a relatively smaller organization, you may not be able to survive the impact of security breach. So you may not do VAPT, but obscurity is not security. Sooner or later, you will end up being breached, because if you want to test out this thing, all that you got to do is just check the logs of your VPC environment. The moment it goes online and there is a public IP address attached to your server, it could be your load balancer, it could be your internal machine, you will end up seeing a lot of attacks, or not attacks, a lot of surveillance starting. It is called footprinting. It's because that is the very first step when someone wants to attack your system. And just look at them, and that should be good enough reason for you to decide that, okay, I want to conduct VAPT as soon as possible. Okay, next is, what is the difference between conducting web and mobile application VAPT? Fundamentally, first of all, the devices on which they are accessed are different. The way these applications work are different. One is accessed through a browser, another is accessed through a mobile app, or rather, the other one is a mobile app. But in the background, usually nowadays, what is happening is that both web applications and mobile applications, they tend to use a web services based architecture, meaning whether it is a browser or whether it is a mobile app, they both will end up making API calls to your web services and displaying the results. So the difference between web application and mobile app is reducing fast, the gap between how they function. But then the way VAPTs are conducted for web app and mobile app are different, in the sense that there are some additional things that need to be done for mobile apps. There are some inherent architectural aspects that need to be checked for mobile apps, which is something that is not applicable for web application. So you should, in a short way, I would say that a mobile app involves some additional steps over whatever is done for a web application VAPT. Next is, do you think app creators, developers are aware of VAPT? Yeah, my opinion is this. It is unfortunate that most of them are aware of the concept of VAPT. And the unfortunate part of this is that most of them do not take that extra step of getting VAPT done. If you are an app creator or a developer, even an independent one, you should ideally get a VAPT done. Sooner or later, your expectation is that your VAPT or your application is, becomes popular, and the more popular it becomes, the more it becomes liable to be attacked. So it does not matter. See, it's like this: if you're building a house, you want to be sure that it is something that will not collapse on you. If you're building a car, you want to be sure that there is a brake that works in it, right? So why are you building an application that you're not sure whether it's secure or not? I find it very, very disturbing in my opinion. Okay, then next is why identical scanning environment is required for VA. Can we do VA in PRD setup as VA is not normally non-destructive? Okay, no. This is misunderstanding. First of all, VA may be non-destructive, but I explained this earlier that you want your scanning environment to be exact replica of your production environment. See, no one is going to attack your scanning environment. No one is going to even be able to reach your development environment. All that they see is the production environment, which is public. So that is the one they are going to be targeting. Look at it this way. Let's say you build a house and you want to test whether it is secure or not, but you, as you said, like, you do not want to destroy that house, right? So yes, your VA is going to be non-destructive, but that does not mean that when you test the security of it, whatever replica you build, if it is not identical to it, you'll not be able to find all of the weaknesses that you want to fix in your production environment, right? So you want it to be identical. There is, like, you will not discover all of the vulnerabilities that is inherent in your production environment, and if you do not discover all of them, sooner or later you're going to be um, facing a breach. It's because you may not discover them, someone else will. Once they discover, they're going to exploit it. You might as well want your security team to be discovering these vulnerabilities, not your not the hackers, right? So please ensure that your scanning environment is identical to your production environment, whether or not you are conducting non-destructive VA. The fact of the matter is this: you should actually be conducting destructive scan. That is what PT is all about. So see, this entire session I've been talking about VA and PT being, the two of them being different. But if you do not do PT, this happens very often that you may, let's say, discover some vulnerability. Unfortunately for you, let's say it gets identified as, or it gets rated as a medium or a low severity vulnerability, because on the face of it, that is what it is. That is what OWASP guidelines or SANS 25 say. So your security team will classify it as per the CWE rating or as per the CVSS score. Unfortunately, what ends up happening is that um, you may decide that you will not fix it because it is such a low problem, right? But someone will be smart enough to combine two or more of them, maybe use some zero-day vulnerability that exists in your tech stack, combine all of them together, and then succeed in breaching your system. These all aspects only get covered in a PT, and PT by design is destructive. So if you are thinking that, I will do non-destructive testing and be done with it, it's a good practice, because that level of security is still better than no level of security. But is it something I would call as adequate? No. So ideally you should reconsider. Next is how do I start with zero or minimum cost for VAPT for my web app? Okay. See, the amount of knowledge that is required by VAPT teams is significant. Like, the domain knowledge of people from security is comparable, in my opinion, to your engineering team. And that, engineering team is fairly knowledgeable, right? And that it costs a lot of money to keep your engineering team. The good thing about security or VAPT related costs, specifically, when you are outsourcing it, is this: it's a project. You complete the project and you are done with it, and then you only have to pay for the next project, which you will probably do it once every 3 months or 6 months, something like that, right? So it is not an ongoing cost. If you're a large enough organization who can afford an in-house security team, which is also consisting of technical security experts, people who are CEH certified or OACP certified, good for you. Maybe your need is that maybe you belong to a domain or industry where you need to have a full-fledged security team that is constantly conducting these kind of scans. But if not, then first approach is clearly outsource your VAPT activity, because in my personal opinion, majority of the organizations do not need to have a security team of their own. The reason for that is it becomes extremely costly to maintain a security team. The cost benefit is not there enough, right? So that is one way of reducing, outsource it. The second way is that, let's say that you even do not have the budget for doing this, then the bare minimum that you can do is that someone from your engineering team, um, tell them to go ahead and learn a little bit about how exactly security is improved for web application or mobile application or your DevOps environment, and try to do something. Although this is something that I would not recommend at all, because the depth of knowledge that is required to do a decent job is actually quite high when it comes to VAPT activities. And as it is said, little knowledge is a dangerous thing. You may end up cornering yourself with a false sense of security, and this is something that you may not want to do. So there are ways to do it. You will have to obviously spend the time and effort to learn, but I strongly recommend that the best approach is, if you're building an application, keep aside some budget for getting VAPT activities done from outside. I just want to reiterate as to what exactly do we do, so that if at all you need additional help, you can reach out to us. I am from Numetric, and we provide security services and products. As part of security services, in addition to compliance like ISO 27001, PCI DSS, and managed security services, where we handle your security function altogether, we also provide technical security services, so vulnerability assessment and penetration testing for whatever kind of asset you may have. A web application, which can be any architecture that you have. It could be set up in any, in AWS, GCP, or Azure, or any other hosting environment that you have decided. We can do it for VPC itself, which is your VPC infrastructure. We can scan. We also do office LAN scanning if you've got a big enough office LAN that needs security, and mobile app testing, which is Android apps and iOS apps. In addition, we have some security products as well. If you need anything, any kind of help, please reach out to us at secure@numetric.com. Thank you all for joining today. Bye.